Ladies First with Aris White.
Thank you.
And followed by Dr. John F. Price, Baba Prince, and then by Juan Ra Africa of the House of Ra, Hunter Haviland Adams III, Dr. Carl Spite, and of course your host, Dr. Gloria Latimore Peace. Now I think I should ask Hunter to open the show since he is responsible for getting me into this. So get me out of this.
The Matrix films, science fiction films that have caused a worldwide phenomenon. I think one of the first things you have to ask in talking about these films is why these films? Why did these two Polish young men from the southeast side of Chicago who lived in a multicultural, multiracial environment create these stories? Why did they do that? Who is the target audience of the films? Why did the films have such a worldwide cultural impact? Because they have, with thousands of websites being devoted to the films, with courses on philosophy related to the film at universities, at Oxford, Harvard, Princeton, with a wide array of merchandising opportunities from the film, with a video game from the film, with a series of animated films around the film done by Japanese animators. Now even Toyota has a car called The Matrix. We have to really ask, what is it about these films where in 2 months from May the 15th, when Matrix Reloaded was released, to July the 15th, it made over $667 million worldwide. So clearly there's something going on here. Clearly these two directors, writers, and producers have tapped into something. Some say they've tapped into the angst of this age of technology influencing our lives, that we can't get away from it. Some say they've tapped into young people's quest for meaning who aren't finding it in organized religion, whether it's church, mosque, or temple, what have you. Some say it's people's dissatisfaction with the corporate way of life, that they're tired of working in their cubbyholes and cubicles, that the film tapped into that. Marxists would say that it's a statement against capitalism. So there's many, many different views around these films, but we have to ask, why now? What happened that allowed these films to break through and create so much impact, cultural impact on the world, where some people are complaining that it split the Christian community, with evangelicals, many of them on the one hand praising the film that allows them to talk about information in the Bible, where fundamentalists on the other hand find it very threatening to their existence. And some people are upset because it seems that Neo, the one, a Christ-like Messiah-type figure, supposed to bring love, but he wants more guns. You know, so it goes against the peaceful Savior who's come to save the world. And then we learn that he's not the one, that who we thought was guiding him, Gloria Foster, who plays the Oracle in both films, that she's only a program. So it brings to mind that the question, are our lives a program? Are we really simulations? And so the films have raised all these issues. They even probe the very notion of what is reality to some extent. Can you tell the difference? How can you tell the difference? So there's something going on with these films that I hope this panel can make some small contribution to the dialogue, because part of the problem is that we as a community have been, or have chosen perhaps, to be not a part of this worldwide discussion. How is it that Korean Buddhists can talk about this film, that Japanese folks can talk about the film, that philosophers in Poland and Slovenia can talk about the film, that it can be talked about in Oxford? Why not Howard University? Why not Florida A&M? You know, why not in our local communities? So we think that we're missing out on part of this discussion, that there's some critical issues, particularly today, that our young people are faced with, that they're running simulations, they're in a matrix, you know. And then we read when the film came out that a young couple, a black couple, they were caught in a matrix at the theater because they had purchased a ticket and someone said that they stole their ticket, you know. So the person disappeared who made that claim, and so now they're involved in a legal suit. So as it said in the film, the matrix is all around us. In fact, there's more than one matrix. You know, there's a number of matrices that we are a part of. The question is, how are we going to free a few minds? Can't free everybody. You know, a lot of folks don't want to be free. You know, as they said in the first film, that I know this steak is an illusion, but I'd rather have my illusion than live with this reality. So I think it's important that we talk about the film. We even have one of our academic scholar warriors, as he likes to call himself, Dr. Cornel West, a professor of religion at Princeton University, who has a cameo in the film, and we may talk about that. Only said one line, but he's going to have more in the next one. So we have to ask, what is it about Cornell's writings, Dr. West's writings, where the Wachowskis felt it was important that he be in the film in a cameo? We have to talk about race in the film. It seems like these films go against the genre of science fiction, whereas black people who are in roles in science fiction films tend to die off very quickly. They never make it to the end. They aren't heroes, and certainly we don't see women in science fiction films. So the films bring up a lot of issues. There's a subtle cloaked racial and cultural and class context in the film. You know, maybe we can talk about that. We can talk about a lot of things.
If we're going to talk about any of this stuff, I guess we better get started, huh? All right. Who wants to wade into this somewhere in the midst of all these rhetorical questions that Hunter raised, knowing perfectly well that we will not answer them in this 1-hour show? But let us say this. I have a book that I'd like to recommend. It's called The Unreality Industry, and it's available in your library, in your local bookstores. And this book actually has a publication date of 1989. And it deals with much of the same kind of material that the Matrix film deals with. It kind of makes you wonder whether or not the people who produced the film read the book and then went off into a science fiction with some hard research and made it entertainment. But at any rate, how much weight should we give this film in the grand scheme of things? I mean, this is arguably a very important film, given the impact that it has had worldwide and the amount of money it's made and the spinoff and so forth and so on. What can we learn from this film? What can we learn from having this discussion? Well,
I have, I think, a tentative answer to one of his many questions. Of course, no one can answer that many questions. It'll be in the next Matrix film, I'm sure. All those answers. But certainly you asked the question, Hunter Saab, what was it about the film in terms of its contents that had such an impact across all cultural lines, and even racial lines, we may add, gender, etc. Well, there's nothing unique about the contents. The Wachowski brothers have packaged the Dhamma, the most ancient wisdom tradition that has been on the planet for centuries, and put it into a form and a format that it can reach millions of people, you see. In ancient times, you see, that kind of knowledge was secreted. The public did not get it. So what has occurred with the advent of this film is that the esoteric has entered into the exoteric domain. And the response that you see in people is the response that anybody would have if they encountered the Dhamma, whether it was in book form or sitting at the feet of a guru. The concept of a matrix is certainly not new. There has been talk about Maya, the illusion of your experience as being real for millennia, beginning with the great African sages. So it is not the content. It is simply the fact that the esoteric has encountered the public and it has blown the public mind. Now, I'm sure there's much more that can be said about it, and I'm sure that our esteemed colleagues here.
Well, I think that both of these gentlemen have spoken about the Matrix. I'm always fascinated about this Matrix. It's so entertaining for me. Not only entertaining for me, but I love the aspect that what they've done, these Wachowski brothers, has taken, if say for instance, if a holy book was to be written in this time and age, high technology, how do you get your message across to people who are living in this high technological age, who has an understanding of technology and so-called sophisticated civilization? Well, if you look at some of the old holy books, the Quran, the Bible, et cetera, they speak in the idiom of that particular time. You know, they deal with goats and sheep and whatever that particular time. You know, people were uneducated at that particular time when these books were particularly written. The masses were. You know, very few people had scholarship. And so they spoke in a language conducive to that particular time. And with the Wachowski brothers, what they've done with this film is that we spend so much time looking at movies and looking at television that they've taken the essence of what these so-called holy books have written about, and they put it in a panoramic technological point of view that we can sit back in our comfort of our seats and look at it on television, see it unfold. This is a beautiful thing. It is inspiring, just as these holy books from the past are so inspiring to those who are making an attempt to interpret them. Of course, the Wachowski brothers' Matrix is subject to a lot of interpretation also, as we are here speaking, but it embellishes our interests. Our interests are heightened. And they're basically saying that this world that we live in, that we think is so concrete and so true, is unreal. This is nothing new. Every great saint, sage has come and said this world is unreal. But we haven't heard him. So we need someone to speak to us in a language, in a genre, indicative of where we are at. If they would have written this book, not the book, but if they would have made this movie, say 20, 30 years ago, it would not have had the same impact. I'm telling you. It would have looked at as a science fiction movie, and most people would not have understood, just like Flash Gordon. Men going to the moon and et cetera, before men actually went to the moon. But due to the fact that we have become so sophisticated and so technologically advanced that we understand computers, binary codes, and all of that, that it appeals to us. And it's dealing with a basic subject matter of truth, the unreality of this world in which we think is real. And I think that in each and every human being, their truth lies, and they are being touched in some capacity of that truth, whether they're willing to acknowledge it or not. Some people they're made uneasy. Some people are very joyous. I'm very joyous about it. It's a beautiful movie. I'm anticipating the next one.
All right. I think we would have a sister speak.
I think that the film, as my brothers were speaking, has packaged a genre, a language that allow people to discuss some things that's been on their heart and their minds, such as maybe being able to examine their lives and say, is this a simulation or am I really living? Is this reality? If, for instance, you're in the States, you might think poverty is someone that's struggling every day, but you go to a third world country, poverty is something totally different. A lack of running water, no plumbing system, no electricity. That's poverty, but we don't see it as poverty. So the simulation that we're living here on this side of the Americas is different than the South Americas. So it's a film that has packaged a genre, a language in which people can discuss some of the things that are happening in their life. I call it the inward journey, to examine themselves, to see if am I living reality or am I living the simulations of my past? Am I carrying my baggage? And every encounter I have, that baggage comes up, and that's how I interact with people, not the authentic interaction. In the movie, The Matrix, the first one, they talk about a neural interactive simulation. And when I look at that and I seen what he was showing him, he says, oh, Neo, this is a simulation, interaction simulation. But we do that every day as people. We interact with each other without really interacting with you at this time, this moment, this place, and embracing what you have to offer as humanity. You know, my humanity is coupled with yours. That's the only way I can be human. So I think this movie has allotted everyone a chance to have a language, a voice, in which they can tell each other how they feel and to discuss it. And I think it's great that we're here discussing it today so that we can extract certain things and go to the next simulation, if I could say that.
Yeah, I think the jury is, for me at least, still out on just how well we are empowered and enabled by the two films, two of a set of three, presumably. We can overly invest, I think, significance with The Matrix and The Matrix Reloaded and fail to recognize that to the extent that these shared experiences, very widely shared experiences, become edifying is not, I think, ultimately a derivative of the films as much as what we make of them in our own critical opportunities to reflect on them. I'm entertained by the films, more so by the first than the second as I reflect on it. But I don't take them too seriously in and of themselves. There's no mistaking that they are media phenomena, and they are highly manipulative in being such a successful representation of media phenomena. But they're also just occasions. The occasion of a Supreme Court, state Supreme Court judge standing up and talking about acknowledging God and defying a federal court decision is another occasion. And so I'm not sure which one of those has the greatest import for me right now, but my notion again is how we signify and add significance to these films is a part of the phenomena of the film, perhaps, and is a part of our responsibility, I think, as critically reflecting people.
Well, I probably can admit that I have some difficulty in believing that two people whose arguably their spiritual background is unknown to me would be able to package the ancient, mainly Eastern philosophies and put them all together neatly into a film and thereby present us with something that the sages have not been able to get us to attend to in the past. I'm not able to make that leap. I think, too, that if it does have the capacity to present a forum for dialogue among us, that I haven't seen the implications. I haven't seen the dialogue. I haven't seen us talking about it on, based upon the spiritual ideas or the ideas that are inherent therein. I mean, people have opinions. They like the film. They don't like the film. There's too much violence. There's a lot of amazing things going on, computer-generated action that obviously is not physically possible on this plane. I would certainly hope that if it has the potential, since it probably reaches a large number of young people in this, how many 100 million?
667
Okay,
million.
there's probably a lot of dollars coming out of young pockets
Absolutely.
going into that. I would hope that if this is if the possibility exists that young people might pick up something that they might use as a connection to something deeper and more lasting, because not everything can be entertainment.
Right.
Life is not entertainment. It's a very serious matter, and those of us who have looked at all into spirituality and into philosophy have understood, have been taught that we are projecting the reality that we think we see, that the senses have been programmed before we recognize we even had them to label experience. Experience is experience, but the labels that you put on experience are generally taught to you by the culture or the society into which you are born. And so we understand that a great deal of what we think and feel we have inherited from other people. And that's particularly true of black people, who have been the subject of more behavior modification and mental manipulation probably over a longer period of time than most other people. So when you think about the fact that we have a reason to be concerned about a movie that says that a reality has been pulled over you to imprison your mind, to control your mind, to keep you from knowing that you are a slave to a system that you are not able to perceive, is it's an arresting thought, and it's science fiction on the one hand, but it is black history on the other. Every serious scholar that has ever studied people of African descent has gone right to psychogenocide as the major problem affecting black people. That is the destruction of the mind. This is how we are told that African people were brought into abject slavery, from having had from having lost control of their minds because of deliberate scheme on the part of non-African people. So we have to be very interested if now this is being attributed to everybody. It's not only people of African descent who have suffered this mind control thing, but the whole of society. So it raises the question, where is God while people, and well, not people, but while machines have turned the tables on human beings and have gained control of the human world and are growing people to fuel the world that they control. You know, certainly I know why people, the organized religions are getting upset, because this says that there is no room for a higher power in this. This is man against machine. You know, the old, who was the steel driving man? John Henry?
John Henry.
The old John Henry legend retold. So is this, are we just able to talk about a reality that is simply a struggle between man and machine, and there is, and either man is going to win or the machines are going to wipe out man, and that'll be the end of mankind or humankind as we know it? You know, what are we going to do with that kind of equation? Because that's what we're given. We're given, this is man against machine. If man does not wake up, free his own mind, he will be destroyed by these machines. And there's no, as Jesse Jackson would say, no one can save us but us. In other words, human beings have to save themselves or they will be destroyed. They cannot look to gurus, they cannot look to a savior, you know, they cannot look to Neo. And don't you find it interesting that Morpheus has decided that Neo is the one? Don't you find that, why couldn't Morpheus be the one?
Well, I look at it in a sense, Guru Manji, that this whole phenomenon, what they're projecting is the Matrix itself is part of the Matrix. There are hierarchies of the Matrix, especially in Matrix Reloaded.
Okay.
Such is the same with the human mind. There are many levels of reality. You see, we get to find out that the Oracle itself is part of the Matrix.
The program.
Yeah, she's a program, so she's part of the Matrix. And now we're going to find out a lot of other things about who is part of this whole Matrix. You know, in other words, it's taking it to another high level. But this is entertainment. We got to understand, too, that this is entertainment. It is provoking entertainment, but it deals on a subject matter that correlates with the level of spiritual truths. You see, spiritual truths, as Bhagwan said, that, you know, the Dharma that has been given throughout history has been encapsulated in this movie, and they projected it out on the silver screen.
But the Dharma is not pitting human beings against machines.
No, this is symbolic. It is all symbolic. You know, the mind itself is a machine.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. That the human mind, we must understand that we who have identified with the human mind, this human mind itself is a machine. There's no doubt about it. If the mind is a machine.
It runs simulations.
It does all of this. It is, as a matter of fact, this is the thing who has created the Matrix itself. The human mind has created the projection of the Matrix, but the mind operates in the same similarity as the Matrix at different levels, as it is showing us on the silver screen. That's the beauty of it. Now, most people say, well, no, not my mind. My mind can't be a machine. My mind is sophisticated. My mind is me. I am the mind. You see? No, you are not the mind. There's something else other than this mind. And if you examine this mind in detail, and if you would do some of the things that is necessary to see that the Dharma has called for, you will find out that this mind acts exactly like a machine, like a computer. It has its own program. And as you were saying earlier, you know, the blacks who have, we blacks I've been subjected to this, that. We all are subjected to this machine. There are levels of this machine. The taskmaster himself is part of the machine. He's part of the matrix. There are levels of this reality. Even those who come and say, free yourself, is part of the matrix, part of the machine. Where do we go? Where's the guru? Where's the teachers? Where are they? Well, we have to find them. The stimulation is that we have to find them. Can we trust anything outside? Can we trust anything outside? Is it all part of the matrix? Well, that's what we're finding out in the matrix. You see, that even the things that we thought were pure, somehow is part of this matrix also. And so therefore, what does it do? Well, we have to wait till the third part come out.
No, we can't wait.
No, I must agree. We are being held to wait, instrumentally and manipulatively by the third of the trilogy. No mistaking that. But as you say, we don't have to suspend our sense of being able to adjudicate and resolve these issues until the Wachowski brothers resolve them. No mistaking that. By the way, just following along something you were saying, it appears that if we follow the implication of what Reloaded is carrying us to, it appears that Neo may be a part of the Matrix, or has evolved to be a part of the Matrix. But this is an enormously powerful and dangerous and exciting moment, and we can't give over to the brothers the adjudication of that, because Neo is also the one, right? This notion of Neo being the one and being possibly a part of the Matrix is a dangerous moment in Reloaded that we have yet to see, and I think we have to have the ability to not allow ourselves to be carried that next step, depending on how that is adjudicated. We don't know at this point whether there is a victory of humanity over the machine, for example, whether the one is in fact the carrier and the repository of hope, or whether there is no hope. And the brothers, in some sense, have us suspended.
Well, the Oracle
awaiting
did
that.
say that Neo is not the one in the first film.
But the Oracle was smoking and drinking, so you did note that. So how much credence can you give to an Oracle with so little discipline?
Yeah, and I think that same attitude should be taken about the film itself. The film is a metaphor.
Yes.
It is
Yes,
not
it
a
is.
substitute for or equivalent to the Dhamma. The Wachowski brothers are not Buddha. They are not Mahavira. They are not realizers. These are artists,
Absolutely.
clever.
And clever, very clever.
But that's it.
Geniuses, possibly. Yeah.
So you mustn't make that fallacy.
Absolutely.
These are fingers pointing to the moon. Do not confuse the finger with the moon. What the film is pointing to, what the film is restoring in your time, is some of that Dharma that many people will never encounter, because they will never pick up the Dhammadata, or the Bhagavad Gita, or the Quran, or the Bible, or the Zenavesta. You see? So for them, it serves as a kind of virtual guru. But a virtual guru is not
the same.
equivalent to
Right.
a real guru. And that is the danger of the film, because now it gives millions of people a very trivial introduction to the Dharma without the benefit of a guru to correct their misinterpretation and to provide them with the context by which to really free the mind. As Prince Saab has pointed out very beautifully, you have to understand you are in a matrix this very moment, because you are identified with your mind as being you. But you never pause to pose to yourself the question, what is that which is aware of what is being thought with the mind? Thou art that. Tat twam atsi. And that is not a thinking machine. The mind is a blind mechanism. It is a machine, a fantastic machine, but it is mechanical. Garbage in, garbage out. But as long as you are identified with yourself as being the mind, and that's who you feel you are. You feel you actually this body mind. Now, all kinds of suffering and problem arises because of such an identification. That is the whole point. You have to be unplugged. There is no way to liberate you from the matrix while you insist on remaining in the matrix. That cannot happen. There is a level of truth that can only be known when you get unplugged. You can't know it in your plugged-in condition.
Can you get unplugged by a critical faculty? Is there
No,
a
no.
path
The critical
through
faculty
analysis?
that you're relying on is the mind. The mind
there's
is
no-
never going to do anything to undermine its own supremacy and domination in your life. The truth, you see, beloved, is that it is the matrix is really your ego. This false sense of self based on your identification with your body, your feelings, and your mind. That is what holds you in the ego matrix. And an ego will never, ever engage in any kind of activity that will lead to its own demise. That's not going to happen. Hence the need for a guru. The guru enters into your matrix and unplugs you by giving you the truth.
I think that
Otherwise, you can't come out of it,
what you
by
said,
definition.
Bhagwan, in the first film, Matrix, it stated exactly what you're saying. Neo's in the car, and he's going to see the Oracle. And Trinity turns to him and tell him, he's saying, oh, I used to be there, I used to hang out there. And she was saying, the Matrix can't tell you who you are. Mm-hmm. So then he moves on, and he goes and see the Oracle. And when he walks in her kitchen, there's a sign above his head that says, know who thy are, you know, who you are.
Know thyself.
Know thyself, thank you. So then it moves on to when Reloaded, and we're looking at the part where there's a question. Is Neo machine? And you're saying the battle is man against machine, but if he's machine, then getting to your mind, being a machine, that's that battle again. So you cannot know who you are based on the matrix, the machine in you, the machine in your environment, the simulation that you're running. So how do you get out of there?
That's the point.
And that's
There's
what
one
Bhagwan
point
is saying.
that the film has not addressed, and it is precisely these points, is that the matrix we see that they're freed from is a matrix created by the machines who they in turn created. But we don't see them freeing themselves from the matrix of their own minds. Now, I don't know if we'll see that in the next one, but I don't think so, because that will really tell people what the real matrix that you have to free yourself from
One thing
is
I-
who you, this self-identification, that the self that we have is a model. It has no ontological reality whatsoever, and that's tough to deal with. That how can I exist as a human being when I'm only a model? This has been created by my conditioning, my social experiences.
Right.
And my subjectivity has no real existence in and of itself.
Then you're not on this show.
Yes, he's on the show, but it's
Well, I'm
all
on the
simulation.
I'm on the show.
But one beautiful thing about this matrix is that it shows us other aspects of reality, unreality, that we perceive
That
as
Warren
reality.
Bennis talks about.
In other words, the matrix creates freedom. You want to be free? The matrix created freedom. You think you're free, but you're still within the
enslaved.
context of the matrix because it's a higher program. You see? This is the same thing that is happening in our so-called reality, you see. We think we will die, we will go to heaven, we will go to hell, we have the religions, we have all of this, we have the holy books. All this is part of the matrix. Heaven itself is a part of the matrix, you see. Those who give and dedicate their total lives to escaping this so-called freedom can be tricked into another level of unreality that the matrix has created, which is the mind. The mind is so sophisticated. We do not really understand or have any concept or idea how supreme, how sophisticated this thing called the mind is. We think that we can conquer the mind with the mind. We think that we can conquer the matrix with the matrix. You see, we have no idea that this mind has the capacity to give you the illusion, greater illusion. And that's one thing I like about the matrix. It shows you that even the saviors who come are part of the matrix itself. So what does one do? It is a dilemma. I'm interested, that's why I say I'm interested. It's entertainment now, you know. In other words, as each gentleman has said.
But it's
you know,
more than entertainment.
It stimulates us. It stimulates us to look. But we have to do our own research within ourselves if we really want to find out what the matrix is all about in this reality, what the mind is about in this reality, you see.
Well, I can't help but think also that there's a certain amount of conditioning, whether it's self-imposed or imposed by the matrix is not something I want to address right here, but that there's a certain amount of conditioning that prepares one to relate to the matrix film in a given way. And the film itself then further conditions one to relate to the matrix unloaded or reloaded. You see, so that the matrix now is producing the matrices that are continuing to condition and to cause us to accept a certain version of reality vis-a-vis, you know, the kinds of ideas that are presented in the film. And of course, I would think that probably, you know, we talk a lot on this show about awareness, you know, to wake up. You know, and that's something that they talked about quite a bit in the film, to know the difference between being asleep and being awake. Because obviously, if you're in the matrix, you are not awake. You're not aware.
How can you tell the difference if
You don't know the difference between the dream and the reality when the reality and the dream are identical, are so similar, and when they are both simulations. So here you are on a plane where you are, because I do understand this whole idea that we don't exist, at least as we regard ourselves existing. Because when you take take the right equipment, you will see that we are simply a mass of moving molecules, all blending into the other moving molecules, you know, so we really aren't occupying these chairs as solid, you know, two arms, two legs, 2 eyes, and so forth and so on. So it can, if we wanted to go all the way there.
But you see, Gudamaji, the argument of the saints is not that you don't exist. They never said that. The Dharma never says you don't exist. The Dharma is very clear. But the Dharma says that you are not who you think you are.
Okay.
You must enjoy the distinction between the theory of anatta and the non-existence of a real entity called self, capital S. You certainly exist.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the perception that we have of ourselves is not what is.
Absolutely right.
Okay. I'm not saying there's no is. I'm saying the perception is not what is.
That's right.
So we are saddled with a whole bunch of perceptions, most of which we acquired before we recognized that we could perceive. So we're operating with a mind full of perceptions.
And that's why the mind must be transcended. That is the whole essence of the methodology of liberation. You must transcend the mind.
Renew it.
No, not renew it. You must transcend the mind.
Transcend.
Because your mind is your conditioning. And as long as you are in the matrix of your own conditioning, your destiny cannot be otherwise, you see?
Yes, I understand.
It is
You
self-fulfilling.
got to tiptoe past your mind, got to sneak out.
Yeah.
While,
No, you
while
can't
the mind
sneak.
is
Can't sneak. And you can't do that.
No, I know. I'm
You see,
just saying,
right.
but that is essentially
That's what has to happen.
when you say transcend, it means that you have got to get above and this mind, while this mind is watching you. You know, Big Brother. The mind is
The
Big
mind
Brother.
does not watch. The mind has no consciousness. It
Okay.
has no awareness. It's a purely mechanical process. That is all. It has no awareness. The mind has none of that.
The
You
whole
see, beloved?
aspect of this mind is, if you look at the programming, you know, where is it that, I don't know the name of this guy, you know what I'm saying, he clones himself and he fights and he fights.
Agent
Neo.
Smith?
Yeah, Agent Smith, Agent Smith. It shows you the determination of the mind to keep you encapsulated, to keep you enslaved. The mind would make the proper adjustments to keep you enslaved. It will give you what you need. I mean, in the first Matrix, one guy, he said, well, I like this unreality. Could you plug me back up again? Mind, of course. Whatever is necessary for you to stay within the context of the matrix, the mind will do. The mind adjusts as you adjust. As more hunger for freedom comes, the mind comes to another level. It gives you another reality, you see, of what you think and perceive that may be freedom, even you are perceiving it with your mind. So the mind does everything within the context of its power to keep you enslaved and keep you attached to the mind. And so as back when I said, you have to transcend the mind. You must go beyond the mind. And the way that you go beyond the mind is you have to find that methodology to get beyond the mind. You're not going to destroy the mind, but you have to get beyond the mind.
Now, you know, I have to ask this very trite question. How will one know when one has transcended the mind?
Right.
Certainly, one cannot rely on the mind to report, you are now, you have now transcended me. See ya.
Oh, you will know it because the experience is indubitable. It is self-evidently true. It's almost like asking the question, Gunamaji, how would you know when you have awakened from the state of sleep? No one has to tell you. The experience in itself is self-authenticating. So it is when you transcend the mind. There is no reference necessary to know that experience. The outward signs would even be there for other people to read, let alone yourself. Others will be able to know it. And the mystics have said, because you will begin to live in a state that the mystics have called, for lack of a better term, love. In fact, love is the only energy in the universe by which one can grab a hold of and become transcendent of the mind. There is no other way by which the mind can be transcended. You have to remember, the ego matrix operates on the principle of your remaining identified with it. Now think about it, beloved. As long as you are identified with being your body-mind, you will be hopelessly selfish and self-contracted. That's all you will think about is me, 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 me. You will not be able to go beyond the limitation of your own ego gratification and fulfillment and ambition. Love is the only force operating in consciousness that gives an individual the ability to transcend themselves. When I say transcend the mind, I'm really talking about transcending yourself, your ego, because that's who you feel you are. Where you forget about yourself, to put it in the language of the Christian mystics. Take no thought for thyself. That's the kind of language that they use. You see, the methodology is not some exotic kind of yoga, although that very often is what it appears to be. But it's really about love.
Yeah, the rub there, though, the troublesome implication of that, and if you allow me to challenge you in that way, the troublesome implication of that is that you are at risk of finding a state of transcendence that is uncaring about the immiseration, the agony, the injustice, the violence and hyper-violence in the world of experience.
No, I just said you love. I said that when you transcend the self for the first time, you can care. In egoic condition, that is not real care. That is hypocrisy. That is propaganda. It's not authentic. How will you care about humanity? You don't even care about your own children. This is nonsense. It is only those who have transcended the self, the force of their own ego and the gravitation of all of that, even have the capacity to love. But you're absolutely right. The demonstration of your spiritual attainment must occur within the context of this world, in this realm, on
In
this
this
very,
time.
in this very place, and within the context of your relationship. That's
So
the
the
real
test is
sign.
empowerment and enablement of a challenge against injustice, against
But you love. You
the
love.
hyper-violence that we experience.
You love. Even the concept of injustice gets transcended and tweaked, because very often what we mean by injustice, stuff that is happening that I don't like to me and those who identify with, it is very ethnocentric. You understand? Love,
Gender-centric.
gender-centric. Love transcends all of that.
Yeah, but as we witness,
You love even your enemy.
as we witness those who, from our Western vantage point perhaps, appear to have achieved the highest transcendence, they end up adopting a monastic order of existence. They withdraw from, they are no longer agents in the world.
No, beloved. These men and women are the architects of civilization. Where do you think it came from? It is the God-realized person. Osiris is. They create civilization. Isn't that right? You African, you know the story, the Assyrian Metamorphosean. Osiris brought civilization, not some conventional man and woman. These enlightened people are the architects of civilization. Remove them, and this place turns into a dark ball of mud floating in the universe somewhere. No, they're here. You see? They're operating. Now, you may not recognize them. We may not recognize them because they're not looking for recognition. They're not looking for fame. They're not carrying any signs. They're not tooting their horns. They may write notebooks. They are usually unnoticeable. They're elemental. They're like sunlight. They're here. They're loving.
Yeah. How is that different from saying that the hand of God is moving in the world of hyperviolence and injustice that we
Well, you
experience?
can't see the hand of God.
If we have witness in history of the power and efficacy of that transcendence, then why have they been defeated in some sense? Have those who have been the architects?
No, even in
been
tiny
defeated?
moments.
I'm not
Even
sure where the
even
comfort
ordinary
zone is.
person, Brother Carl, listen. There was a time you wasn't much bigger than my hand. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
You survived because somebody loved you.
Molecules, perhaps.
Is that right? No, I'm talking about when you came out your mother's
Oh,
womb.
yes.
You survived because somebody loved you. Is that right?
Yes.
You are here because of the sacrifice made by someone who loved you. Is that about right?
Right.
So your very existence is proof that love still happens. We don't have to become too esoteric and metaphysical about it. Love is a very practical matter. It's very real, it's very concrete. You exist, therefore you have been loved. Now you have to unpack that.
I think what Carl may be alluding to in this time of hyperviolence, of axes of evil, that there's not a critical mass of this love.
If we have 3 minutes, do you want to do something with that takes us toward a conclusion? Because I can see we about to take off now. So before we get airborne, you want to land this plane?
Yeah, maybe even use it as an opportunity to talk about how we might prepare for Matrix 3 and salvage what might be salvageable.
Now you got 2 minutes.
I think, very, very quickly, that, first I say I enjoy the films. I enjoy their efforts. I'm glad, they fought with Warner Brothers to have Lawrence Fishburne as playing a major role. It's refreshing to see our people in images that we don't tend to see today, given, you know, all the other more business plan films of the ghetto careers. So it's refreshing in that sense to see that. But I would hope that in this third film that they can point to even more deeply some kind of trajectory for the viewers, because the viewers are looking for something. You know, they may not find a teacher, a guru, even a coach, spiritual coach to guide them. But, you know, I hope that the last film resolves a lot of things. But quickly, machines are us. We are machines. We operate as machines, being so habitual. So we shouldn't make the technological description that a lot of people are making technology, machines